This webinar is focused on suicide prevention and teen mental health and will last about an hour, but it can be extended as necessary. While the subject matter is quite serious, our goal is to provide hope, resources, and positivity to those who are listening in. There are a few items I'd like to mention before we get started. There is no active chat for this session, and all participants should be muted, but as time permits, my expert panel will try to answer any questions you may have towards the end of the program. So throughout the webinar, if you think of a question, please send it in an email to goldaward@designpath.com, as shown on the screen. If we can't get to your question in the live session, I promise we will get back to you shortly thereafter with help. Secondly, this session is being recorded and will soon be posted to my project website for viewing. My project website address is also shown on the screen and is suicidepreventiongoldaward.com. Lastly, please know that if you are in need of help right now, or really at any time in the future, you can dial the National Suicide Crisis Line at 988. Many might be intimidated or not know what to expect, but rest assured there are live counselors available 24/7 to help. I'd like to pause now and show you a brief 1-minute video about what to expect when you dial 988.
Anyone can call 988. When they call, they will get the greeting, the message, and then after that, you'll get a kind person to pick up. Right off the bat, we want you to know that we're here to support you and we're here to help.
You're not talking to an automated system, you're talking to someone that can actively be with you in that moment.
You know, what in this moment do you need? Is it a friend to talk to? Is it just someone to sit with you in the chaos that's happening? Or do you need services? Do you need a therapist? Do you need a psychiatrist? How can we get you those services right now?
I'm a big advocate for doing breathing exercises over the phone so that someone hears me. They know that I'm with you, I'm gonna laugh with you, I'm gonna joke with you.
By the end of the chat, I've gotten them to laugh. I've gotten them to be like, okay, I can figure out what to do from here.
People that watch this should know that there is somewhere they can go. There are people they can reach out to whenever they need. It's safe.
Okay, so now we're ready to introduce our wonderful expert panelists and begin our group discussion. I'm so grateful to have their participation this morning. My first panelist is Michael Rexford. Michael is a lawyer and the CEO of Light Hope Life Foundation, an LA-based suicide prevention foundation that he founded. He has spoken on numerous panels across the country on suicide prevention. Michael Rexford, if you'd like to tell us a bit about yourself and your connection to the topic of suicide prevention and mental health.
Sure. First, I want to thank you for having me as a participant on this, and also to acknowledge and congratulate you on what has been a Herculean process on your part. I think that bears mentioning at the outset. So with that, back in the mid to late 90s, due to an adverse reaction to a medication that almost killed me, I found myself considering killing myself to basically exercise one last measure of control over my own life, or what I had believed was left of it. I obviously got through that experience and went on to volunteer for Los Angeles' suicide prevention hotline. And found that process and that experience and that volunteer work very gratifying. After going off to law school and developing a legal career, I found that I wasn't able to devote the same 4-hour period to a shift as the hotline required, and so shortly after the comedian Robert and the actor Robin Williams killed himself in 2014, I remember reading someone's comment online that said, you know, what did he have to be depressed about? And someone else said, asking what there is to be depressed about is like asking what there is to have heart disease about. That's just not the analysis. And it occurred to me that based on my own experience and my personal experience and my time on the hotline, my time was better spent creating a platform for myself, my nonprofit, that essentially targeted two goals. One was to raise funds for those organizations and folks out there who are doing the real heavy lifting, the research and education and outreach and all that. And the second one was to teach people how to talk to someone in crisis. We in American society are essentially trained to not be nosy, intrusive, or to give people their space. And isolation is the worst thing that someone who is in psychological crisis can experience.
Yeah. Thank you so much. My second panelist is Dr. Natasha Bogopolskaya. Dr. Bogopolskaya is a full-time school psychologist in the Los Angeles area public school, and she's also a board member of the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention of Greater Los Angeles. Dr. Natasha, if you'd like to say a few words about your background.
Yes, hi, good morning. So, as you mentioned, I'm a full-time school psychologist and I also volunteer for AFSP. Like Michael, I have presented at different conferences on suicide prevention, post-traumatic growth, suicide risk assessments, and the way that I really got involved with this work and volunteering with AFSP, apart from multiple personal experiences and people who I know who have either attempted suicide or struggle with suicidal ideation. I became more interested in how people recover from suicide loss. And so for my doctoral dissertation, I focused on the relationship between post-traumatic growth, how we can grow from a trauma like suicide loss, as well as resilience and post-traumatic stress disorder in suicide loss survivors. And from there, I just became more connected with different suicidologists in the field, as well as people with lived experience.
Thank you so much. My third panelist is Miss Claritza Rodriguez. Ms. Rodriguez is a member of the Academy of Certified Social Workers and a patient support associate. If you'd like to say a little bit about your background.
Hi, good morning, everyone. So I have been working with teenagers and children for a long time. My first experience working with children with adolescents with suicide ideation or self-harm behaviors started. I'm sorry, my dog joined us. Started a while ago, a few years ago. I have about at least 7 years experiencing with supporting adolescents with suicidal ideation and other risk factors. And I have also worked at a psychiatric hospital and supported transportation of any mental health for mental health support. And I have been working with children also since I became an adult. So I currently work with elementary setting, but I do have experience with a lot of with adolescents in the past. Sorry about my dog.
It's all okay. My fourth panelist is Miss Jessie Stegner, who is also a board member of the LA chapter of the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. If you'd like to speak a little about your background.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Yeah, I'm a little bit different than some of the other panelists. My career, I was actually working in the writer's room of a television show called A Million Little Things, which actually is centered around the loss of someone from suicide. And I lost my mother to suicide when I was in my mid-20s. And it was something that I really needed to grieve for a really long time before I could really do much other than that. But it was through that, working on that television show, that I was connected to AFSP, American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. And that was where I was able to find a lot of volunteer opportunities. I joined the board. I went to DC and I advocated for some resolutions to help benefit 988. So I just wanted to just kind of add to this group for those listening. There are a lot of ways to get involved in mental health that don't have to be your career pursuits. You can be a part of this community without having it be your number one, full-time job. There are also other really great ways to get involved. that can still fill that cup, that can still, give you that connection, because it's been such a great, I feel so grateful to have found AFSP and to be such a big, it's such a big part of my life now. Even though I still have, my career and the things that I want to do that are separate from that. But it's still, I still feel so, it still feels like such a big part of my life. So I just wanted to, and we can talk about that and like resources and things like that later, but I just kind of wanted to share that as another, being a volunteer, being a part of the community is also another way to live as a part of this group of the panelists you're listening to.
Thank you so much. So now that we've met our panelists, let's start with our questions. The first question is for Michael, and then I would like to invite the others to join in as they have more thoughts to add. What are some of the warning signs that people should look for in their loved ones and friends that may hint that they are depressed or might possibly consider hurting themselves?
Sure. I'm going to list a number of them and want to preface this list with this is kind of, it is a play it by feel type thing because people are different and people exhibit things differently. And so a lot of this depends on kind of keeping your antennas up, so to speak, and what you know about a person. And I always encourage people to err on the side of expressing concern for someone if there's something that's just nagging at you about someone's well-being or mental health. Having said that, and there are many, many warning signs, but they include the following: talking about wanting to die, talking about feeling great guilt or shame, feeling like a burden to others, feeling empty, hopeless, trapped, or having no reason to live, extreme sadness, tremendous anxiety, agitation, ragefulness, unbearable emotional or physical pain, changing behaviors, which might include withdrawing from friends, giving away items of importance, saying goodbye to people, extreme mood swings, eating or sleeping a lot more or a lot less, using drugs or alcohol or significant changes in those experiences. Those are among the potential risk factors or tells that feel someone's suicidal ideation or potential wish to kill themselves. I defer. We've got a couple of other true experts on the panel who I'd like to allow some space to address this as well.
Yeah, I would say I really like what Michael highlighted. You have to know the person, and so know what is typical and not typical for them. And so there are always certain red flags when someone does something once, but we often like to look for patterns. And if it's someone new that you maybe don't know, sometimes something might not seem like a red flag, but then you might find out something about their history or their past that does indicate to you that this behavior that may appear insignificant is actually quite significant. And so for any of the parents or educators on this call right now, when you're working with a new youth, I always encourage you to be in communication with their guardians and get as much background information as possible when you notice something that may be concerning.
Thank you. For the second question, this one's for Dr. Natasha. In your experience, does talking about suicide truly decrease suicide attempts, or should we refrain from discussing it with teens and young people?
So this question is so controversial. A lot of times people, it's almost like a myth that talking about suicide puts the idea in a person's head. but I'll answer in two parts. So the first part is, for example, when I'm at work and I work with students and I'm doing a suicide risk assessment, I always ask very directly, are you thinking about killing yourself right now? There's no language roundabout. For example, are you hoping to be in heaven? Things like that, especially when I'm working with younger children and they have had a family member who's died and maybe their family has told them, they're in heaven now. Um, and so they might say they want to be in heaven, but they don't quite understand. So it's really important that we use very, very direct language. And if the person says yes, then we inquire if they have a plan, if they have access to means to attempt suicide. All those factors are really important. And what in the field we say that if they are already thinking about it and you ask, you haven't put that thought in their mind. You're just telling them you're a safe person to talk to about that. So, as others have mentioned on this panel, when we're working with someone who's depressed or anxious or experienced a trauma or experiencing suicidal ideation, we want to make sure that they know they are not isolated. I am a person who you can talk to about this. I'm not going to judge you. I'm not going to criticize you. I am a safe space, and then I will help you find supports.
Yeah.
But with that said, something that is also discussed in the community is suicide contagion or copycat behavior. And so we've talked about celebrity deaths, or as Jessie has mentioned, the loss of her mother to suicide. And so we know what we have seen is that when someone very close to us or someone we care about or a celebrity who maybe we idolize has died by suicide, for some people, they now see this as an option and it does increase their suicidality. And so, what's really important is not to glamorize their death, but to see the impact of their death and perhaps to offer other resources and choices. And Jessie talked about working in television, if I'm correct, something with her. So there are some shows that really offer resources, and there are other shows that glamorize it, and that's what we want to be really careful with. We're monitoring the intake of what is on what entertainment is offering us, and when it is actually useful and in a healthy discussion around mental health and suicidality, and when it can actually trigger contagion.
I think that's a really good point. Actually, how I got connected with AFSP is because this show that I was working on worked with AFSP with their storylines. So that's a really good point that you make. I agree. I mean, I think that entertainment is a really sticky place, and having been someone who is lost, like I watch there are forms of entertainment that I feel are so incorrect in their portrayal, or like you said, glamorize. And I think that's why working on the show that I did was really healing, because it was a show that took it very seriously, and we were in constant communication with AFSP about making sure that it was that we were dealing with it in the appropriate way, because it also is so important to destigmatize it too, right? We need to talk about it. It needs to be brought to the surface. We need to, it needs to not be hidden. We need to talk about mental health. People need to talk about when they're struggling, because without it, they need to feel like they have a place. So I think that's such a good point. It's like that line that we need to make sure that we're walking respectfully, but we also don't want to take away conversation. Also, so I'm really glad you brought that up, and I just that was like why that show was like, I think, brought me around to, that's actually how I found AFSP. So that's a really good point. Anyway.
Hi, I just wanted to share the importance of, if you ever hear someone talking about it, even passively, you have to address it. And then sometimes people will share a plan. And that's when it's actually like important not to leave that person alone. It's important to get help immediately. Sometimes one thing you can do is have the person, because it's not just adolescents, right? Have the person who is struggling in the moment, ask them, I could take you to the hospital. Let's go. Let's go get some help. And literally all you have to do is go to ER and you'll get support. We got to remember to treat mental health just like we do with physical health. So if you break a bone, you're going to go to the ER. If same thing, if you have someone who is struggling in the moment and they're willing to go with you, then you go. If not, of course, you call 911. And I'm sure we're going to talk about that more later, but of what to do. But it's just very important. And I think that's like one of the major things that it's like the biggest red flag is when they tell you how they're going to a plan, a time. I've dealt with an adolescent who said, I'm gonna do it at 2 o'clock when my mom is picking up my little sister. He had a place, a time, and what he had a whole plan. I've had other students who shared they were gonna use their scarf. So you have to take everything they say seriously. And I can give you many examples, but that's not what we're here for, but I just want to make sure that you guys are aware that sometimes they're going to tell you, no, I'm not going to use my resources. No, I'm not going to ask for help. And that's when you know you need to take action.
And if I may, I'd also like to add a few things. One is we in American society, perhaps world society, aren't trained what words to use to talk to other people about a subject that has remained in the shadows for so long. So I think one critical aspect of talking to people about things is using words that show that you're comfortable with whatever their answer might be, right? If you're talking to someone, or if you're concerned about someone and you say, you're not thinking about hurting yourself, are you? It gives the other person the sense of the answer that you want to hear and essentially renders you a closed door in terms of any help that might be available. So again, we're in the area of art, not science in some ways. There's a whole spectrum of ways that anything can be addressed, but we talk about issues. We talk about committing suicide, right? Like you commit a crime, like it's a bad thing. Like, okay, let's get that lingo out of our language. And dovetailing on what Natasha said, which is, are you thinking about killing yourself? What it actually is, not are you having dark thoughts? Are you thinking about hurting yourself? Are you? And by the way, if you use it indicates that you have an openness to the subject matter and with whatever the answer might be. Of course, if someone then says, yes, I have had thoughts about killing myself, there's again a whole spectrum of levels of crisis and urgency. The more developed the plan, the higher the crisis, the higher the urgency. If someone has been having thoughts of killing themselves with no developed plan, I'm not necessarily sure, though I'm not a doctor, that hospitalization or the emergency room is necessarily the way to go. Sometimes people are left alone and isolated with their stressors, whatever they may be, and whether they even know all of what they are. And having a resource, someone to talk about that with, sometimes can make a significant difference.
Yeah, thank you so much.
I would like to add one more thing because it is, and I'm so sorry. It's just because there's a lot of adolescents here, I'm assuming. I hope so. And I want to make sure that you understand that when a friend shares that with you, it is okay to talk. So in our field, when we work with students, with children, adolescents, we always let them know confidentiality is very important and necessary in our field. However, we have to break confidentiality whenever someone's trying to hurt themselves, and we let them know. So as a friend, this is when you can break your friend's trust and asking an adult for help. This is when it is okay as a friend to tell your trusted adult, how can we help my friend? She or he just shared this. If they are hurting, this is where you as a friend, it's okay to break that trust between your friend. I just want to make sure that it does not make you a bad person. This is where it is important to ask for help at school, wherever it is that you feel comfortable, but a trusted adult to talk to make sure we support that friend of yours. We don't take it lightly. Make sure you talk to someone about that.
Thank you so much. Those answers were great. Um, let's see. Miss Stegner, what is the best way to introduce a conversation or approach someone that you know and love that you think is depressed or at risk for a suicide?
This is a really good question. I really think that there's actually no bad way. I think showing that you care about someone that you love is really beautiful, no matter how you do it. So I mean, I think that if anyone listening is concerned about someone in their life and they want to speak to them, know that you are right. You are good. You are doing the right thing. I think that there are there's so many ways to reach out to someone. I think that if it were me, like, I think the easiest ways are just asking to hang out, just asking to be together. And then, when you're with that person, just ask them how they are, ask what's going on, like you would normally with a friend. There's, again, like, I know people don't really talk on the phone anymore, but giving someone a call, FaceTiming, texting, there's really no wrong, asking to go, getting tickets to something and saying, hey, I have tickets to this thing, and kind of have pre-planning something. So you have a reason to ask them to go somewhere. There's no real wrong way to start that conversation, right? To get you in a room with someone, to get on the phone with someone. And I know we're kind of going to talk about resources later, but there's this great website called Seize the Awkward, and it's attached to AFSP, and it just kind of talks about like the process of like learning the signs of when a friend or someone might be struggling with their mental health, how to start the conversation and what to say. And there's just a page of like, send them a text that says, what's up, invite them to go on a walk. There's an infinite number of ways to start that conversation. And none of them are bad and none of them are wrong. I remember, I felt, like my friend was kind of going through something, and I just like drove over to her house and I texted her, and that kind of sounds maybe creepy, but she was one of my best friends, so it was fine. And I was just like, hey, I'm here. Do you want to like go on a walk? We were very close. So maybe don't do that with everyone, but it's just showing that you are there for someone, that you really want to listen to what's going on, I think is the core of it, right? Is the thing that matters. And that you really genuinely want to hear what's going on. And from there, then we take it to whatever that next step is.
Yeah.
I think that it's important when speaking with someone that a lot of care is shown toward getting that person talking, and that is best facilitated by what are called open-ended questions, not yes/no questions. Questions that are intended to get the person talking and revealing things about what it is that has them in this place. And asking specific questions that draw out these stressors. How long have you been feeling this way? Does anybody else know about this? Things that allow them the release valve, because in most instances, particularly with adolescents, there aren't channels of communication to share a lot. So if there's someone suddenly who they perhaps trust, information will pour out. And by the way, when someone is suicidal, they frequently don't have a lot of energy. So they may not be willing to just kind of initiate sharing. You may need to draw it out of them. And the process of asking these questions that are tailored to their current circumstance also shows that you are genuinely interested and are okay with the answers, which will only help kind of get it all out and really allow you to kind of take next steps, again, whether that's sharing with an adult or what have you. Again, when I, in all of my talks, I ask people to, in the audience, raise your hand if you've ever asked someone, those 6 questions. Are you thinking about killing yourself? And virtually no hands go up ever. And it's not a criticism. It just highlights how unaccustomed we are in society to asking those questions. And I think is indicative of how society has viewed this problem. Yeah, be prepared to get the person talking. It will only help smoke out the stressors.
And if I could add, first of all, I echo checking out Seize the Awkward because they have explicit scripts and conversation starters and even videos of such conversations. But if the conversation that you have isn't like what Clarita described, where they immediately tell you what their plan is, and maybe it's not a high risk immediate situation, going back to what Michael said, it may take more than one time to have that conversation, right? Even if you have a close relationship with this person, they may not be ready to talk with you about that. And so just don't give up. Try to have that conversation again. Or like earlier, Clarita said, make sure that if that person is not opening up to you, but you suspect that your friend or loved one may be suicidal, see if there's some, disclose that with a safe person and someone else can have that conversation. So if you are a teen and your teen friend is not talking to you about it, that's a time to go tell an adult and see if an adult will have that conversation with them too. So really taking a community approach when appropriate, or if you're a parent and this is your child, making sure that not giving up after one conversation or saying, oh, they're never going to talk to me about this, but that you can try multiple times.
If no one else has a comment to add, we can move on to the next video. Thank you everyone so much for those answers. Next, I'd like to take a break and show you a video from the Mayo Clinic featuring teens talking about these very ideas that we've just discussed. It's about a 3-minute video, and after that we'll have more Q&A with our panelists. Remember, if you have questions, please send them now to goldaward@designpath.com.
I have my ups and downs, just like anybody else.
Maybe more than anybody else.
I can be hard to figure out.
And I like my privacy. I don't want you looking over my shoulder all the time.
But you know your kid better than anybody else. And if you think he's acting different than usual...
Acting really down, crying all the time for no good reason.
Or getting really mad, not able to sleep, or sleeping too much.
Shutting her friends out or giving her stuff away.
Acting reckless, drinking, using drugs, staying out late.
Suddenly not doing stuff he used to love.
Or doing stuff that's just not like him.
It might be nothing to worry about. It might just be high school.
Or it might be something more. He might be depressed.
Not just feeling down, really depressed.
It might be that your kid is thinking about killing himself. It happens. More than you think. More than it should.
And people say, I had no idea.
I thought it was just a phase he was going through.
I never thought she'd do it.
I wish he'd come to me.
I wish he'd said something.
I wish I'd said something.
When it's too late. So if you think your kid's acting different, if she seems like a different person, say something.
Say, what's wrong? How can I help?
And ask straight out. Are you thinking about killing yourself? It doesn't hurt to ask. In fact, it helps.
When people are thinking about killing themselves, they want somebody to ask. They want somebody to care.
Maybe you're afraid you'll make it worse if you ask. Like, you'll put the idea in their head.
Believe me, it doesn't work that way.
It doesn't hurt to ask.
In fact, the best way to keep a teenager from killing herself is to ask, are you thinking about killing yourself?
And what if they say yes?
Or maybe.
Or sometimes?
Well, here's what you don't say.
That's crazy.
Don't be such a drama queen.
You're making too much of this.
That boy's not worth killing yourself over.
That's not going to solve anything.
You're just trying to get attention.
You're not going to kill yourself. What you do say is,
I'm sorry you're feeling so bad. How can I help?
We'll get through this together.
Let's keep you safe.
A lot of people think about killing themselves, adults and kids.
Most of them never try it, but some of them do. So if your kid says,
I'd be better off dead.
I can't live with this.
I'm gonna kill myself,
Take her seriously. Find someone she can talk to about it. Someone who knows how to help.
Sometimes kids want to kill themselves because something happened. A breakup, a failure. But sometimes it goes deeper, and it's not going to go away by itself.
Get some help. Talk to your doctor.
Or a counselor at school.
Or your minister.
but don't just let it drop.
And make sure that your kid always has someone to turn to. Someone he trusts.
Make a list together right then. 3, 4, 5 names.
Put a suicide hotline number on there too.
Have him keep that list in his wallet, so he always knows where to turn.
Make sure your home is safe.
If you have pills she could use to hurt herself, lock them up.
If you have a gun, don't just lock it up. Get it out of the house. The bullets, too.
And one more thing. If you think your kid might be about to hurt himself, don't leave him alone.
Take him to the emergency room.
Call 911 if you have to.
We all have our ups and downs, but sometimes it's more than that.
If you think something's wrong, the only way to find out is to ask.
Ask straight out. Are you thinking about killing yourself?
Don't wait until you're sure. Trust your gut.
Because it never hurts to ask.
And it can make a big difference. All the difference.
In your kid's life.
Okay, now we're back with our second round of questions for our experts. Ms. Rodriguez, how do you think that social media factors into stress and anxiety that teens face today? And what advice do you have for parents trying to manage their teenagers' use of social media?
So first and foremost, research actually has shown that social media usage has a linkage to depression and anxiety. However, there is not a straightforward answer. So part of it has to do with the amount of social media use. So some research showed that if you use more than 2 hours, there is a link to depression and anxiety. Also, the relationships that they're being built while using social media. And then there's the pressure of multiple social media aspects, multiple social media outlets. And then also there are some gender differences also, so to pay attention to. But overall, the best way to address that as a parent is just limiting the use. So if you're able to have some parental control, I personally do it with my teenager. I have an Apple, an iPhone, and I'm sure probably Android has similar feature where I can limit the social media use, internet use. Another thing that social media use has an effect in is sleep. So usually if they have access to their phone by their bed, more likely that adolescents are not, being responsible. And they're probably using it pretty late. And lack of sleep affects, mental health as well. And then excessive social media use makes you be just sedentary and just not being active. So then physical activity is lacking. So then that affects your mental health as well. So overall, as a parent, it's important to talk to your teen about internet use, internet safety, model the behavior of what is appropriate social media use. Know what they're using. There's so many social media outlets out there where they have conversations and share pictures. There's apps that have live videos when you log on. So being aware of all the social media that's out there and knowing what your adolescent is using. But overall, it's just monitor the social media use. Talk to your teen. It's just important to have that relationship with your child, to have those conversations about what is it, what are they sharing. Like my rule is I want to know your password. I'm not going to be looking at it. When she was younger, but now she's getting older, more responsible, but that was one of my things. So if you have YouTube, like YouTube is social media. Yes, we watch videos, but that's social media as well. They comment on each other's videos, and just being aware and what you're okay as a parent for them to use. And talking to them about internet safety, sharing pictures, everything that you share on the internet lives there forever. So yeah, so it's just important. Again, it's just conversation and limits, and putting limits, and making sure your child is sleeping.
I'd like to add a few things, if I may. I think social media presents some particularly difficult and thorny challenges for adolescents. First of all, obviously, it won't surprise anyone that adolescents experience all kinds of constant changes, hormonal and psychological and every other kind, which includes a lot of that's I'm hearing some kind of a weird effect. A lot of insecurity, and because a lot of
Michael, let's wait. Let's move to the other phone. Michael, let's wait. Let's move to the other phone.
What do they want to do?
Rob, are you hearing that?
There it is.
Yeah.
I can pick up.
Yeah.
Okay. So and I want to touch on those insecurities. A lot of social media postings involve people putting themselves in their best light, which don't reflect reality. And for an inherently insecure mindset, and I mean no criticism or judgment on that, I have a heap of insecurities. Everyone does. It can compound those and create a distortion of perceptions that can do a trick on you. That's one aspect of it. So kind of a reality check while if someone is a regular social media participant, I think is important because those distortions can begin to seem like reality, and that's not the world. That's part one. And the second part I'd like to highlight is in this age where any number of participants in the world, and I say that in terms of our politics and otherwise, have somewhat been viewed as licenses to behave badly. People are ruthless in their commentary. And again, during adolescence, when sensitivities can be particularly pronounced, those criticisms, comments, cruelties, and what have you can dig deep. So the social media space is largely unregulated, and for an unprepared adolescent mind, again, the no judgment, no criticism about that. That is the nature of adolescence. There's no preparation for that. And they are launching headlong into that world with no filters. And that can contribute substantially to mental health problems.
And I wanted to add something I heard another clinician who works with teens and high school students. She told actually all of us on our team of school psychologists that, previously if a middle schooler or high schooler wasn't invited to a party, you wouldn't hear about it until Monday. But now teens are seeing it in real time that there's an event happening that they were excluded from. And so that has also been contributing to stressors that teens experience. And sometimes they do have to wait until Monday to get support for that stressor. So again, just a call out to everyone on this town hall, that if that is something that you're noticing is happening, or your teen or you yourself are excluded from something, instead of waiting until Monday when you're at school and there's maybe someone at school you can talk to, find someone to talk to over the weekend, because that is a stressor. Seeing in real time, live streaming, all of that, not just the commenting, can have an impact. So it's not just seeing really positive things, but even seeing negative things can activate some emotions in us. And I'm not saying that means get off of social media, but just knowing how to respond when you see something like that, that may make you feel sad or upset or hurt.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Oh. mhm.
Oh, if there was another comment to
Oh,
add.
I was just gonna say, I am not in my adolescence, and I deactivated my Instagram because it was destroying my mental health. It was just like I couldn't.
Amen.
It was like it just I couldn't do it anymore. So if you're thinking about it, I highly recommend it. I know as like a younger person, like that may feel like impossible, right? Because it's the way that like you connect with each other. But that's also a possibility, even if it's deactivating it for short periods of time. I know a lot of people who do that, who will deactivate their accounts for a week or a month, like giving yourself that space from it can be, even if it's not permanent, can be extremely healing. So that's just something to kind of keep in mind if you're feeling like it's starting to encroach on your well-being. You can take its power away. That can be a choice that you can make. So that's just something to sort of keep in mind as well.
Thank you so much. Now for the last question, I'd like to go around the group and get each of your thoughts on what are some resources that you would recommend to parents, specifically trying to help their teenagers through anxiety and depression. If we could start with Michael and then go around the group, that would be great.
My foundation, Light Hope Life, has long promoted American Foundation for Suicide Prevention and the American Association of Suicidology, excuse me. I've given substantial amounts of the funds that Light Hope Life has raised to those two organizations, in addition to the Didi Hirsch Mental Health Center here in Los Angeles, under which the suicide prevention hotline is housed. AFSP.org, I believe that is, AAS.org. The National Institute for Health, I believe has one. AFSP and AAS, in my book, provide everything you need. And of course, one's own doctor, pediatrician, right? There is no better resource than someone who knows you.
Yeah.
I agree with AFSP and AAS, learning local foundations. There are many suicide loss survivors who have started foundations in honor of their loved ones. So, depending on what area you're in, learning about those foundations so you can hear people's stories and connect with people who have lived experience. So that's something that AAS is really trying to promote, is not only are we working with researchers or clinicians, although there is often overlap, but also highlighting people like Jesse was saying, who maybe aren't in that field, but who have lived experience or are volunteers and can share a lot of important information and knowledge and inspiration, as well as resources for those who have lost someone to suicide or for those who are suicidal. I would say definitely, as I work in a school, reaching out to your school, reaching out to faith-based organizations. Every faith-based organization is very different in their approach to mental health and suicidality. But if that is a community you have, seeing if that is a resource for you, and then looping back again to seize the awkward for the conversation starters. Those would be my suggestions.
I would like to share the importance of also seeking out mental health support. If you can, you have the resources, getting mental health support from your medical insurance, your medical provider. If you do not, sometimes at schools, for the most part, there's resources within school. If you don't have health insurance, and unfortunately, that's the world we live in, right? And it's important to just seek out the mental health support, get a therapist to help you, support you through the process. As a parent, be patient, validate your child. They're adolescents, but they're still children. They're still are learning, they're still developing, their brain is still not fully developed. Be patient with them, because sometimes as parents, we don't know what to do because our child has maybe acting out too much and you feel like, I don't know what to do anymore. Reach out to these resources that everyone has shared. You yourself can text 988 and say like, I'm just want to know how this works. I've done it myself because I haven't used it, I haven't needed it, unfortunately, right? However, I want to know how to use it so that if I recommend it, I know how they can support. And then although I was letting them know that I'm just testing this out, I want to know how this works, they still made sure I was okay. So I just want to verify that. So, let you guys know that there's a lot of resources, there's a lot of people who want to help. There's a lot of out there, and you could just Google something like how to help my teenager, and you could Google is our best friend right now. That's the technology world we live in. But making sure that you seek out professional support is important as well. So, and being patient as a parent, that we're not going to have the answers to everything when our child is struggling, and that we just need to seek out our support systems. And lastly, it's a safety plan. After a child has disclosed suicidality or self-harm behaviors, we do a safety plan. After hospitalization, same thing. If anyone is hospitalized, that can also be very traumatic for a child and adolescents. I've experienced it myself by transporting a child and an adolescent, and also by working at a psychiatric hospital. It's not always the best experience in the world. No systems are perfect. However, having patients make sure you're linking to resources after hospitalization is also important. And usually there is a referral in place, but following up is very important into any medications that they are prescribed, and talking to your primary doctors and following up with anything else that comes afterwards, and seeking that support, because it's not easy. It's not easy. No process in these conversations are easy. But the help is out there, and there is hope.
I love that you called 988 and they still made sure that you were okay, even though that's really lovely. I just have two small things to add, because everyone already gave great resources that I was thinking of, which is great. The first, kind of to go along with what you just said, I've had so many friends who get really discouraged with looking for therapists. And maybe the first one that they meet, or the first person that they seek help with, isn't quite the right fit. And I just encourage you, parents, teens alike, it is a process. Like you said, it does take time, and to be patient, and to work together as a family, and to have that persistence, because it is a process. And there are people, it is easy to want to kind of walk away and be like, finding a therapist or finding help is too much hard work. It's too much mental energy. It's too, I don't even want to try anymore, finding, and I just really encourage you to stick with it, because it is worth it. And it is gonna, in the long run, it is so beneficial. And I implore you to keep going down that road. And the other thing I was just going to share is that with AFSP actually has one of our chapter community walks this upcoming Saturday, a week from today. It is free to register. It is a fundraiser. We do accept donations just for our research, but you can come and do a walk with us. For anybody that's just kind of looking, like I said earlier, just looking to be a part of that mental health community. I went last year. It was my first walk, and I really did not tell anyone about my loss. I was very quiet. Nobody knew other than like my 3 closest friends. And I went, and I just really felt loved and supported. It was the first time I really felt like I could share. So you can read about the Pasadena Community Walk on afspa.org. Again, you can register, it's free. There's like a presentation at the beginning where they have a lot of really great speakers, and there's usually like music and dancing and things. And then we do like just a neighborhood walk around the community of Pasadena. It's really engaging, and just really it will, you know, it's hard and beautiful, and sort of that mix of love and hardness and all those things that you feel when you're dealing with that hard stuff. So if that's something that anybody is interested in, I will be there. You can come find me and say hello. And that's just another thing that you can, you know, take a part in if you want to.
Having participated in a couple of those walks and having sponsored one of them as well in prior years, and been a speaker at it, there is a bittersweetness to it, of course, because virtually everyone has, if not everyone, has been affected and touched by it. But it is an overwhelmingly positive, safe space in which really anything can be said. It is just a big group hug. That's just its nature. And in an area of our society that remains what I believe is the last one really to have a stigma, right? I frequently tell people that back in the 90s, and I know that a number of our viewers may not have been around then, in the late 90s, Ellen DeGeneres came out on a Time magazine cover with 3 words, "Yep, I'm gay." And there was widespread outrage. She lost her show. It was unbelievable. I couldn't believe the backlash that there was. Now, if someone were to come out on a magazine cover, we'd say, and, right? So we've come a long way in the last 25 plus years. And from my perspective, it seems that mental illness is kind of stuck back there, right? It's almost it's something that whoever they are, just not us, they deal with, right? If you think of someone with mental illness, you know, you may think of the guy walking down the sidewalk with one shoe on, talking to no one in particular. Okay, that may be one type of untreated mental illness, but mental illness runs a wide spectrum, and we need to get comfortable talking about it, because the stigma around the subject matter is harmful and keeps people from seeking the help that they so desperately need. And if you are in one of those walks, or you're talking to someone who has no problem talking about it, because there's really nothing that you can say that will make me, the person approaching you, uncomfortable, there's no better environment in which to share. And that's the most valuable circumstance in which to gather what might be critically needed information to provide critically needed help for the person who's in crisis.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Speaking of resources, on my project website, you will find the following resource card, which I'd like to take a moment and walk you through. So on the left, there are various crisis lines to call, all of which are open 24/7 and are free. In the middle section, you'll find apps specifically for teens that can help with breathing, meditation, and anxiety. They provide safe spaces for everyone, and I really hope you'll try them out. And lastly, on the right, there's a QR code for Michael's Light Hope Life Foundation website, as well as a link to specific content for young girls about mental health on the Girl Scouts of Greater Los Angeles website. I have also printed up postcards of this resource, so if you would like a hard copy or copies to distribute, please feel free to email me at my project email, and I will be happy to deliver it locally to spread the help. Next, I'd like to thank the City of Agoura for being a wonderful supporter of my project and show you an interview that the current city mayor gave me a few weeks back during September, which was National Suicide Awareness and Prevention Month. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Claire Guillory, and I'm so grateful to be here with our esteemed Mayor of Agora, Miss Elise Buckley-Weber.
Hi, good morning, everybody.
I'm currently working on my Gold Award project, which is focused on mental health and suicide prevention for teens. Ms. Weber has graciously agreed to be here with us and to answer just a few brief questions on this busy morning. Ms. Weber, unfortunately, suicide is the second leading cause of death with people my age, with attempts of suicide on the rise in the recent years. So one of my questions is, as mayor of the city of Agora, what are your thoughts on how local communities and schools can support teens and families that undergo mental health challenges?
Well, first of all, I think that there are a lot of challenges, and so I think being at the high school level is a great opportunity for counselors to step in when they see an at-risk youth.
Yeah.
And any kind of counseling that can be given, any kind of support that can be given to kids. I think that there's a lot of stress on people your age, and I think people need the tools to be able to deal with it in a way so that they don't feel alone and lost, and so hopefully we can prevent the suicides.
Yeah, thank you, that's great. Many statistics also suggest that social media has played an unfortunate role in the rise of challenging mental health issues in teens. What are your views on the influence of social media?
Well, there's a strong influence, and I have to tell you that honestly, there was not social media when my kids were in school, and I don't know if I could have even handled it. Being bullied publicly like that on the internet has got to be so incredibly painful and having, kids are young and they turn against each other because someone has said something bad on social media, and there's a lot of bullying. So I just hope again that the young kids are getting the tools that they need to turn it off, ignore it, and remember that bullying is never ever appropriate. And so they need to know that they, kind of take the high road and do their very best and talk to someone. It's okay to cry about it, that you've been bullied and teased. I was bullied and teased in elementary school, but it was at my elementary school. It wasn't on social media for the whole world to see. And so you just have to make sure that you're comfortable, tell your friends, tell your parents. And because I'd like to say ignore it, but I don't know if that's possible, but turn it off. Just like when you don't like something on the radio, turn the station.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, Madam Mayor, for your time in supporting my project here today. We did have one question from that a watcher sent in. So, Jesse, you talked about the walk, but are there any other opportunities to help with these organizations and to get involved?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I got a question. Sorry, I wasn't expecting it. Yes. So AFSP has chapters all over the United States. And there are tons of volunteer opportunities. If you go to the website, there's actually like a calendar, and you can read about all the different things you can take part in. There's tons of events. There's actually an international day, Survivors Day, that's coming up as well in end of November. That's another really great opportunity. Yeah, there's others that are escaping my mind right in this moment, but there's tons of really great opportunities. And you can also join the email list. So if you go to the site and go into the volunteer section, and then you'll just get emailed other opportunities as they come up as well. So tons of stuff throughout the year that you can be a part of.
Does anyone else have any volunteer opportunities that they would like to recommend?
There are different hotlines that you can be trained to be a supporter for. If anyone here is going to college, almost all colleges have opportunities for crisis hotlines where you can sign up as a peer mentor, and the university will train you to be a hotline supporter for various calls. It's not always just related to suicide. With AFSP, there's also something called Healing Conversations, which is for adults, but if any adult who's on here is interested in volunteering with And then I wanted to say too, just earlier we were talking about resources, and I wanted to say something that sometimes therapy doesn't work for everyone. And it's really important to make sure that we, again, going back to not being isolated. So maybe your opportunity is to volunteer being a coach for someone, leading that soccer team or that theater team or that art club. And that could be something that your peer, if you're a teen, or another child, if you're an adult, is looking for. So creating opportunities where youth can connect with one another. I think that's also really, really important. And again, that could be something that already exists, something you start yourself, something at your faith-based organization, just creating opportunities for connection. And I just want to share one other really quick resource, Claire. When I saw your the postcard, I wanted to add one more app that I recently learned about that's called the Not Okay app that was made by a teen who was either depressed or had attempted suicide, and it essentially creates trusted contacts. So I just encourage you to look into that app as well.
Thank you so much. Yeah. If anyone has no other comments, that concludes our program for today. I'd like to thank each and every one of my panelists for appearing today and for volunteering their Saturday morning to help our community. It is so appreciated. And I'd also like to thank again the City of Agoura for their support. Lastly, I'd like to thank everyone for joining this morning, and I hope to hear from some of you through my project website. Take care and stay safe.
Thank you. Thank you, Claire.
Thank you.
Claire.
Thank you, Claire.